see. Let me know what you guys can see on the screen. It should be a PowerPoint.
I do see the PowerPoint.
Is it in presentation mode now?
It is in presentation. So welcome, Ansel, and thank you for giving us a presentation on the outcomes of the survey we did last year in Crystal Pond.
Yeah, thanks, Gene. Again, Ansel Aarrestad. I work for the water monitoring program for Connecticut Deep. Gene just asked me to come on and give a quick overview of the temperature array. So that all came together between a couple of us in Deep, Gene, Hillary Kenyon Anir, and Cariel Cataldi, who is the big volunteer on this project. She was also a previous seasonal with our group, so you know, we know her really well, know her work ethic. Knew she'd be great for getting this deployed out on Crystal Lake in Eastford, Woodstock. These are just a couple pictures of the actual array. Cariel's big into scuba and snorkeling, so she was actually able to go out at one point and take some nice underwater photos of the buoy and kind of the chain setup. Over on the right-hand photo, you can see one of the onset U-22 temp loggers deployed. This would have been the one deployed right at the 1 meter depth mark, is my guess. And then this diagram here, you know, this is just a general overview if you haven't seen something like this before. But it's vertical array anchored at the very bottom by, you know, this one specifically and the one that we have deployed out on one Oskapomic, weighted down by some cinder blocks. And then you have some rope going vertically, held vertically in position by buoys at and near the surface. And then every single meter depth, you have a temp logger zip tied to that rope, and getting it in full meter increments as close to the bottom as possible. So I don't remember exactly what the deepest point total depth is at Crystal, but it's somewhere around 9 meters. So there's temp loggers deployed from 1 meter depth all the way down to 8 meter depth. So just a quick refresher, I'm not sure this group really needs it, but you know, the big purpose of this temp logger array is to look at lake stratification year in and year out and how that's changing, you know, mostly due to climate change and expectations. You know, we're seeing stratification occur a lot earlier in the spring. And certainly last year, it was warm pretty early in late winter, and then it got cool again. But it's already kind of starting that process as soon as those temperatures go up. So, you know, you have your summer stratification where you have your 3 different epilimnion, metalimnion, hyperlimnion temperature layers. Overturn in the fall, there's a lot of mixing of the temperature. It's very uniform. And then you have winter if there's ice cover. I don't know what the ice cover is like on Crystal specifically. But you'll have some slight variation in temperature layers, and then spring overturn mixing once again. So, you know, really in-depth analysis hasn't yet been done on this. I know Cariel, when she'd go out, she was taking YSI profiles, and that's nothing that I've looked at yet. But what I am able to produce from the temperature logger data, and this is running May 23rd of last year, and then she pulled it up October 24th, I believe, just to read the data off the loggers, give me something. But using the Cont Data QC and our Lake Analyzer packages in R, you can produce this pretty, nifty heat map, which hopefully you guys can see again now. Which is basically your warmer colors, your reds, your orange, your yellows. You can see the temperature chart on the far right here are your warmer temperatures, and then your cooler temperatures are your pinks, your purples, your blues down at the bottom. And, you know, I just did a quick little visual assessment of it for this meeting. You can see, and we knew this going into it, we got a late jump on actually deploying the array. So we actually missed the transition from overturn to initial stratification in the spring. Certainly no surprise not getting it out there till later in the year. And you can see already on the left-hand side of this heat map, you already have your forming temperature layers here, whether it's, it's roughly 22 degrees the first 4 meters, and then 18 degrees at 5 meters, and it's still much cooler at 6 to 8 meters in depth. But the real stratification period occurs halfway through June towards September. You can see those redder areas because of making the assumption because of how shallow relatively crystal is. You can certainly see a lot of mixing going on throughout the year and temperature changes. On the Woodstock array that we have, it's instead of 9 meters in depth, it's 30 meters in depth, and the red area stays a lot more consistent throughout the summer period. But because of the shallowness, it could be boat activity too, could be certainly helping to mix some of this. One thing Jean brought up kind of anecdotally, but I figured I'd throw it on here. I didn't look at the data specifically to line up everything, but she was just asking me about the potential for some of those heavy rainstorms we had last summer. And, I thought it was a fair point, so I threw it on here, just the general area where they occurred. But, we had some really heavy rain in the middle of July. And if you're just kind of eyeballing this, you have a period where it seems to be a little bit more mixed for several days in a row here. You're transitioning from some of that red period of warmer water, and it's pretty consistently staying in this green. The tropical storm Henri that we had at the end of August, again, just kind of I wanted on here. It kind of lines up with this yellow column here, transitioning from some of the orange and reds closer to the surface, kind of dissipating and being pretty consistently yellow. So again, maybe some major mixing there as well, especially in the peak of your warm temperatures expected in August. And then, we had Hurricane Ida right at the beginning of September, and that's when you start to see, a transition to a lot more mixing going on in that water column. You're more consistently seeing greens from the surface down to 6-7 meters for that month. It all kind of starts right at the beginning of September, lining up with that hurricane. Certainly the change in temperature plays into that too. As we get into fall, temperatures are decreasing. And then come, October, pretty much the whole water column is uniform at that 19 degrees. And then you see it getting cooler and a little bit darker blues, but still very much mixed. And that's when it gets pulled up. So, it's definitely stratifying. There's certainly some mixing events that go on, certainly staying stratified, but just you're only getting pockets of really warm, 28 degree water over time. It's not necessarily very consistent day in and day out. Since Cariel put the array back down, it's recording temperature right now. So once the array gets pulled in the spring, I'll have the data and I can kind of add it right onto this. There'll only be a 1-day gap in data. I suspect that the winter, it'll look pretty similar to that far right. Very uniform, dark, cooler colors. And then, hopefully we'll be able to catch the initial stratification in spring 2022 this year, since the array is already out there and there's a lot less work to kind of swap all that out. So
Just a quick comment. I noticed at the beginning of July that there's a spike of surface water that's pretty warm. And all of the loggers that I retrieved last year show that spike. So we must have had a heat wave at that period of time because the surface water was pretty warm in all the places that we were monitoring it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's in the rest of the years are in streams, but it's definitely interesting. I mean, as it would make sense that it all kind of lines up that way. So that's a really good point. Yeah, I don't remember specifically a heat wave, but we obviously had something there because it warmed up pretty quick. And I mean, that was the hottest part of the summer. It almost seems like even more so than August.
If anybody has any questions or comment, please feel free to unmute yourself. Hearing none. Thank you, Ansel, for showing up at the meeting and giving us this presentation. I'm going to stop the recording and I'll make it available to anybody who wants to see it in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Gene. Obviously, I'm glad you guys are interested in continuing this because this is certainly something that it provides more value the more data you have. I mean, just like with everything else, but you know, we just have a small window of 1 year, so getting some of that data spelled out for a full year and 2 years, you know, you can really see if any changes are going on.
Thank you very much.